A breath of trust. Jamie couldn't stop pacing. The waiting room felt suffocating. Had it really been this long? Worry gnawed at him like a relentless tide, pushing thoughts of something being wrong into his mind. Everything is fine, his husband, Eric, said calmly from his seat, his body relaxed as if they were lounging at home instead of waiting for news. Just breathe. Fine? It's been ages. Jamie argued, confusion and dread bubbling up. How can that be fine? Look, Julie knows what she's doing. This is her fourth child. You're overreacting, Eric replied, trying to inject some sense of normalcy. That doesn't mean it won't be difficult, Jamie shot back, his voice a mixture of frustration and fear. Hey, she's strong, Julie's husband said from the corner, lightening the mood with a smirk. My wife isn't old, just experienced. Exactly, Eric added. She's been checked regularly. You know she's in good health. Jamie shook his head, his instincts screaming that something was amiss despite what everyone else believed. The air felt charged, and he could practically taste the unease. His nervous energy turned into a frantic shuffling that seemed to echo through the cramped space. Jamie, sit down, his mother suggested, concern etched on her face. You'll feel better. I can't, he blurted, the humiliation of his anxiety weighing heavy on him. What if I miss something? Calm down a bit. It'll help you think clearly. Eric attempted once more to place a comforting hand on Jamie's shoulder, but Jamie flinched away. Don't touch me right now, he said, more sharply than he intended. Eric took a step back, a hurt expression flashing across his face, while Jamie continued to pace, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. Each step was measured against the pounding in his chest, the growing tension pushing him closer to the edge of panic. Then, as if summoned by his spiraling thoughts, the door swung open, and Jamie looked up to see his father, Frank, standing there. The atmosphere between them crackled with unspoken tension, just as heavy as the situation at hand. Jamie, Frank finally spoke, his voice low and gravelly. Can we chat? Jamie opened his mouth to refuse but was surprised to find himself nodding instead, following his father out into the cool autumn air that seemed to provide a brief reprieve from his spiraling thoughts. Sit, Frank instructed, gesturing to a bench outside. Jamie complied, needing to ground himself. Breathe in deep. You need to calm those nerves. As Jamie inhaled, he felt a rush of sickness rise with it, and he quickly leaned over, the remnants of half-eaten food making an unwelcome return. Ugh, sorry, he groaned, wiping his mouth in embarrassment. Nothing to apologize for, Frank replied bluntly, before adding, with that attitude, you'll struggle becoming a parent. That struck a chord within Jamie. Yeah, clearly I'm not ready, he muttered, defeated. Frank's gaze fixed on him, steady and unyielding. I remember when you were 2, you got sick at night. Lisa, your sister, was terrified when she heard you. She didn't want you choking. Jamie's heart sank. That brought back memories he had never wanted to reflect on. I don't see how that's. Frank interrupted. Once we got you cleaned up, I held you and thought about how close it was. It scared the hell out of me. Jamie blinked, surprised at the vulnerability slipping through his father's facade. I had no idea. Of course you didn't. I kept that from you. I believed being strong meant not showing weakness. I never thought of you as weak, Jamie replied, his voice softer now. Why are you telling me this? Because learning to be a father isn't about being strong, it's about being there. I never felt ready, and I still don't. I had to navigate my way through all the ups and downs. Then how do you handle it? Jamie couldn't suppress the need for guidance. Frank shrugged, looking up at the sky. You try. You'll make mistakes. Sometimes you'll mess things up badly, but you learn from it. You keep going. No one is ever fully ready for fatherhood or anything else life throws your way. For the first time, Jamie felt a sense of clarity, like a weight had been lifted. And that's enough? I hope so. I am learning too. I regret missing your wedding, Frank added, the words heavy with remorse. Eric wanted you there. We would have loved to have you. Frank's face hardened slightly. I need to work on being a better father to you, and to your children as well. Thanks, Dad, Jamie offered genuinely, feeling a fragile bond beginning to form. The silence hung between them, but it was more comfortable now. You okay to go back in? Frank asked. Yeah, I think so. Jamie stood up, an aftershock of anxiety still rippling through him but lessened by his father's words. I'll try to be there for you. Frank adjusted his posture, a trace of determination in his voice. Can't be the father every day, but I'll be there when you need me. As they walked back inside, Jamie stopped to consider for a moment. We're thinking about naming her Amaret, it means love. Nice choice, Frank acknowledged, a flicker of approval in his expression. Jamie grinned, his heart feeling lighter. And then there's Violetta, after Eric's aunt. Frank nodded thoughtfully as they re-entered the waiting room. The atmosphere was still tense, but Jamie felt anchored, hopeful. Let's see how it goes. We're in this together. Frank sat next to Jamie's mother while Jamie took his place beside Eric, who turned to him with concerned eyes. What did he say? Eric whispered. Just maintaining a connection, Jamie replied. And for the first time that day, he believed that was enough. Continue and end. Jamie settled back into his seat next to Eric, feeling an unusual mix of anxiety and reassurance. He could still sense the lingering tension in the room. It was an electric pulse, like static in the air before a storm. Eric's fingers intertwined with his, grounding him. Are you okay? Eric asked softly, his eyes scanning Jamie's face for any signs of distress. I am, Jamie replied, surprising himself with the honesty. I think I just needed to talk to my dad. Eric's expression softened further. What did he say? Jamie took a deep breath, the weight of the conversation with his father still fresh. He shared some stories, about when I was little. About how he didn't feel ready for things either. He's learning, just like I am. Eric smiled, visibly relieved. That sounds like a big step for him. It is, Jamie agreed, feeling a newfound warmth swell in his chest. And for me too, I guess. It feels different this time, like maybe we won't repeat the past. Before Eric could respond, the door to the waiting area swung open again, and a nurse appeared, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and joy. Julie's awake and doing well. Congratulations! You have a beautiful baby girl. Immediate joy flooded the room, a collective sigh of relief escaping from Jamie, Eric, and the rest of their families. An infectious smile spread across Jamie's face as he exchanged glances with Eric, who looked equally elated. Can we see her? Jamie asked, his heart racing. Of course. You can meet her in just a moment. Julie's still getting settled, but you can come in shortly, the nurse responded, her cheerful energy cutting through the previous tension. Jamie could barely contain his excitement. Did you hear that? He said to Eric, bouncing slightly in his seat. Eric chuckled, his eyes sparkling. You're going to be an amazing dad, you know that? Let's not jinx it, Jamie said, adopting a playful tone but feeling the sincerity behind the words. Frank, who had been observing quietly, stood up and approached the young couple. I'm proud of both of you, he said, his voice low but firm. You're going to be great parents. If you need me, truly, if you need anything, I'll be here. Jamie's heart felt unusually light at those words. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot, he replied, appreciating the weight of the moment. As their families began to assemble and discuss preparations for meeting the newborn, Jamie could see the shifts in familial dynamics. Frank surprisingly reached out to Eric, making small talk about plans for the baby's future, a gesture Jamie would have never expected a few years ago. A few minutes later, the nurse returned, smiling broadly. Okay. You can go in now and meet your little girl. Jamie and Eric exchanged exhilarated glances again before rising together, hearts racing with anticipation. They stepped through the doors into the recovery room, where Julie lay propped up in bed, her tired but glowing face filled with an overwhelming joy that instantly filled the room. There, bundled carefully in the softest blankets of delicate pink, lay their daughter. Jamie's breath caught in his throat at the sight of her, a perfect little creature with a tuft of dark hair on her head. Welcome to the world, Amaret, Jamie whispered, tears welling in his eyes. Amaret, Eric echoed, as if trying the name on for size. Julie smiled, pride lightening her features. She's absolutely precious, isn't she? Jamie moved closer, his heart swelling. She's everything. As Eric moved beside him, their fingers brushed against the soft fabric of the blanket. We did it, Eric whispered. She's here. Jamie couldn't help but let the tears flow, each one filled with a blend of joy, relief, and love. We're going to figure this out, Jamie vowed, looking down at Amaret's tiny face, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders and a warmth blossom in his chest. We'll learn together, Eric said, echoing Jamie's resolve. The room felt enveloped in a warm glow as surrounding family members entered one by one, marveling at the new addition to the family, their excitement illuminating the space. Frank leaned against the doorframe for a moment, watching the scene unfold with something akin to pride, Jamie catching his eye and nodding in acknowledgement. No words were needed between them, it was a shared understanding that they were both in new territory, growing and learning, ready to write a new narrative together as a family. The future felt bright, full of opportunities wrapped in uncertainties, but for now, all that mattered was the love surrounding them, solid and unwavering. Together, they would embrace every moment, every challenge and every celebration, because that was what family was for. And for Jamie, this new beginning with Eric and their daughter felt like the most comforting promise of all.